The book of Nehemiah, chapter 10, verse 1. Nehemiah 10 and 1. Nehemiah, the 10th chapter and the first verse. These are the names of on the sealed agreement. Nehemiah, the governor, son of Hakaliah, Zedekiah, Zariah, Hazariah, Jeremiah, Pashur, Amariah, Malchijah, Hattush, Shebaniah, Maluk, Harim, Ramoth, Obadiah, Daniel, Ginathan, Baruch, Meshulam, Abijah, Majinim, Maziah, Bilgai, and Shemaiah. These were the priests who put their names on the sealed agreement. And these are the Levites who put their names on the sealed agreement. Jeshua, son of Azaniah, Benui, from the family of Hanadab, Kadmiel, and their brothers Shebaniah, Hodiah, Kalita, Peliah, Hanan, Micah, Rehob, Hashabiah, Zakur, Sherebiah, Shebaniah, Hodiah, Bani, and Beninu. And these are the names of the leaders who put their names on the sealed agreement. Perosh, Pahath Moab, Elam, Zatu, Bani, Buni, Az, Gad, Babai, Adonijah, Bigvai, Adin, Ater, Hezekiah, Azur, Hodiah, Hashum, Bazai, Harif, Anathoth, Nabiah, Magpiash, Meshulam, Ezer, Mashesabel, Zadok, Jadua, Pelatiah, Hanan, Ananiah, Hoshea, Hananiah, Hashub, Holihash, Pilhaz, Shobek, Rehum, Hashabnah, Messiah, Ahiah, Hanan, Anan, Maluk, Harim, and Banah. So all these people now make a special promise to God, and they all ask for bad things to happen if they don't keep their promise. All these people promised to follow the law of God. That law of God was given to us through Moses, his servant. These people promise with an oath to carefully obey all the commands, rules, and teachings of our Lord God. Now, these are the people who are making this promise. The rest of the people, the priests, Levites, gatekeepers, singers, temple servants, and all the Israelites who separated themselves from the people living around them. They have separated themselves to obey God's law. Their wives, sons, and daughters who were able to listen and understand also did this. All these people joined their brothers and the important people to accept for themselves the promise to obey God's law. And they accepted the curse that asked for bad things to happen to them if they don't obey God's law. We promise not to let our daughters marry the people living around us, and we promise not to let our sons marry their daughters. We promise not to work on the Sabbath day. If the people living around us bring grain or other things to sell on the Sabbath, we will not buy them on that special day or any other festival. Every seventh year, we will not plant or work the land, and every seventh year, we will cancel every debt that other people owe to us. We will accept the responsibility for obeying the commands to take care of God's temple. We will give 1/3 shekel of silver each year to support the temple service to honor our God. This money will pay for the special bread that the priests put on the table in the temple. It will pay for the daily grain offerings and burnt offerings. It will pay for the offerings on the Sabbaths, new moon celebrations, and other special meeting days. It will pay for the holy offerings and for the sin offerings that make the Israelites pure. It will pay for any work needed for the temple of our God. We, the priests and the Levites and the people, have thrown lots to decide when each of our families is to bring a gift of wood to the temple of our God at certain times each year. The wood is to burn on the altar of the Lord our God. We must do that just as it is written in the law. We also accept the responsibility of bringing the first part of our harvest, whether from the grain in our fields or the fruit from our trees. We will bring them to the Lord's temple each year. Just as it is also written in the law, this is what we will do. We will bring our firstborn sons and our firstborn cattle, sheep, and goats. We will bring these to the temple of our God, to the priests who are serving there. And we will also bring the first part of our harvest to priests to put in the storage rooms of our God's temple. We will bring the first of our ground meal, the first of our grain offerings, the first from our trees, the first of our new wine and oil. And we will bring 1/10 of our crops to the Levites, because they are the ones who collect these things in all the towns where we work. A priest from the family of Aaron must be with the Levites when they receive the crops. Then the Levites must bring the crops to the temple of our God and put them in the storerooms of the temple treasury. The Israelites and the Levites must bring their gifts to the storerooms. They are to bring their gifts of grain, new wine, and oil. All the things for the temple are kept in the storerooms, and that is where the priests who are on duty stay. The singers and gatekeepers also stay there. We all promise that we will take care of the temple of our God. Nehemiah chapter 11. New people move into Jerusalem. Now, the leaders of the Israelites moved into the city of Jerusalem. The rest of the people used lots to decide who else should move there with the leaders. They chose a tenth of the people to live in Jerusalem, the holy city. The rest of the people stayed in their own towns. The people who stayed asked God to bless those who were willing to move to Jerusalem. Excuse me. Some of the Israelites, priests, Levites, servants, and descendants of Solomon's servants lived in the various towns throughout Judah. They also lived on property they owned in these towns, but the area leaders lived in Jerusalem. And other people from the families of Judah and Benjamin lived in Jerusalem. These are the descendants of Judah who moved into Jerusalem. Athaiah, son of Uzziah, the son of Zechariah, who was the son of Amariah, who was the son of Shephatiah, who was the son of Mahalalel, who was descendant of Perez, and Messiah, son of Baruch, the son of Kohelzeh, who was the son of Haziah, who was the son of Adiah, who was the son of Joreb, who was the son of Zechariah, who was a descendant of Shelah. The number of Perez descendants living in Jerusalem was 468. All of them were brave men. These are the descendants of Benjamin who moved into Jerusalem. Salu, son of Meshullam, the son of Joed, the son of Pedaiah, who was the son of Kaliah, who was the son of Messiah, who was the son of Ithiel, who was the son of Jeshiah. And those who followed Jeshiah were Gabai and Salai. Altogether, there were 928 men. Joel, son of Zichri, was in charge of them. And Judah, son of Hasunua, was in charge of the second district in the city of Jerusalem. These are the priests who moved into Jerusalem: Jediah, son of Joreb, Jachin, and Sariah, son of Hilkiah, the son of Mashallum, who was the son of Zadok, who was the son of Moriah, who was the son of Etu, who was the supervisor in the temple of God, and 822 men of their brothers that did the work for the temple. And Adiah, son of Jehoram, the son of Peliah, who was the son of Amzi, who was the son of Zechariah, who was the son of Pashur, who was the son of Malchijah, and 242 men who were Adiah's brothers, leaders of their families. Amashai, son of Azarel, the son of Azi, who was the son of Mashillamath, who was the son of Immer, and 128 of Amashai's brothers. These men were brave soldiers. The officer over them was Zabdiel, son of Hagadolom. These are the Levites who moved into Jerusalem: Shemaiah, son of Hashub, the son of Azrikam, who was the son of Hashabiah, who was the son of Buni, Shabbathai, and Josabad, two of the leaders of the Levites in charge of the outside work of God's temple. Mattaniah, the son of Micah, who was the son of Zabdi, who was the son of Asaph, the director who led the people in singing songs of praise and prayer. Bakubiah, the second in charge over his brothers, and Abda, son of Shammua, the son of Galel, who was the son of Jeduthun. So there were 284 Levites who moved into Jerusalem, the holy city. These are the gatekeepers who moved into Jerusalem: Akub, Talman, and 172 of their brothers. They watched and guarded the gates of the city. The other Israelites and the other priests and Levites lived in all the towns of Judah. Everyone lived on the land that their ancestors had owned. The temple servants lived on the hill of Ophel. Ziha and Gishpa were in charge of the temple servants. The officer over the Levites in Jerusalem was Uzi. Uzi was the son of Bani, the son of Hashabiah, who was the son of Mattaniah, who was the son of Micah. Uzi was a descendant of Asaph. Asaph's descendants were the singers who were responsible for service in God's temple. The singers obeyed orders from the king, which told them what to do from day to day. Padathiah, son of Mashezabel, told the people what the king wanted done. Mashezabel was one of the descendants of Zerah. Zerah was Judah's son. The people of Judah lived in these towns: in Kiriath Arba and the small towns around it, in Dibon and the small towns around it, in Jacobzeel and the small towns around it, and in Jeshua and in Moladah and Beth Pelet, and Hazar Shuel, in Beersheba and the small towns around it, and in Ziklag, and Mokanah and the small towns around it, and in Rimmon, in Zorah and Jarmuth, and in Zanoah and Ajalum and the small towns around them, and Lachish and the fields around it, and in Azekah and the small towns around it. So the people of Judah were living all the way from Beersheba to the valley of Hinnom. The descendants of the family of Benjamin from Geba lived in Michmash, Ijah, Bethel, and the small towns around it, and Anathoth, Nob, and Anaiah, in Hazor, Ramah, and Gatiam, and Hadid, Zeboim, and Nebalit, in Lod and Odom, in the valley of craftsmen. Some of the groups from the family of Levi moved to the land of Benjamin. Nehemiah chapter 12, priests and Levites. These are the priests and Levites who came back to the land of Judah. They came back with Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, and Jeshua, This is the list of their names: Sariah, Jeremiah, Ezra, Amariah, Maluk, Hattush, Shechaniah, Rahum, Miramoth, Edo, Ginathan, Abijah, Majamim, Madiah, Bilgah, Shemaiah, Cherib, Jediah, Salu, Amok, Hilkiah, and Jediah. These men were the leaders of the priests and their relatives in the days of Jeshua. The Levites were Jeshua, Benaiah, Kadmiel, Sherebiah, Judah, and Mattaniah. These men with Mattaniah's relatives were in charge of the songs of praise to God. Bakbukiah and Ulmai were the relatives of those Levites. These two men stood across from them in the services. Jeshua was the father of Jehoiakim. Joachim was the father of Elishib. Elishib was the father of Joiada. Joiada was the father of Jonathan. And Jonathan was the father of Jaddua. In the days of Jehoiakim, these men were the leaders of the families of the priests. The leader of Sariah's family was Moriah. Leader of Jeremiah's family was Hananiah. Leader of Ezra's family was Meshullam. Leader of Amariah's family was Jehonan. Leader of Maluk's family was Jonathan. Leader of Shechaniah's family was Joseph. Leader of Harim's family was Adnah. Leader of Merimoth's family was Akai. Leader of Edo's family was Zechariah. Leader of Ginathan's family was Meshullam. Leader of Abijah's family was Zichri. Manaim and Madai's families were Piltai. Leader of Bilgah's family was Shemua. Leader of Shemaiah's family was Jehonathan. Leader of Jorab's family was Mattanai. The leader of Jediah's family was Uzi. Leader of Salu's family was Kalai. Leader of Amok's family was Eber. Leader of Hilkiah's family was Hashabiah. Leader of Jediah's family was Nathiel. The names of the leaders of the families of the Levites and the priests in the days of Elishib, Jodah, Johanan, and Judua were written down during the rule of Darius, the Persian king. The family leaders among the descendants of the Levites and up to the time of Johanan, son of Elisha, were written in the history book. And these were the leaders of the Levites: Hashabiah, Sherebiah, Jeshua, the son of Kadmiel, and their brothers. Their brothers stood across from them to sing praise and honor to God. One group answered the other group, "This is what was commanded by David, the man of God." The gatekeepers who guarded the storerooms next to the gates were Mattaniah, Bakubiah, Obadiah, Meshullam, Talmon, and Akub. They served in the days of Joachim. Joachim was the son of Jeshua, who was the son of Jezoadak, and the gatekeepers also served in the days of Nehemiah, the governor, in the days of Ezra the priest and teacher. Dedication of the wall of Jerusalem. The people dedicated the wall of Jerusalem. They brought all the Levites to Jerusalem. The Levites came from the towns they lived in. They came to Jerusalem to celebrate the dedication of the wall of Jerusalem. They came to sing songs of praise and thanks to God. They played their cymbals, harps, and lyres. And all the singers also came to Jerusalem. They came from towns all around Jerusalem. They came from the town of Notapha, from Beth Gilgal, Geba, and Asmaveth. The singers had built small towns for themselves in the area around Jerusalem. So the priests and the Levites made themselves pure in a ceremony. They also made the people, the gates, and the wall of Jerusalem pure in a ceremony. I told the leaders of Judah to go up and stand up on the wall. I also chose two large singing groups to give thanks to God. One group was to start singing up on top of the wall on the right side towards Ashpile Gate. Hoshea, half of the leaders of Judah, followed the singers. And also following them were Azariah, Ezra, Meshullam, Judah, Benjamin, Shemaiah, and Jeremiah. And some of the priests with trumpets also followed them up on the wall. Zechariah also followed them. Zechariah was the son of Jonathan, who was the son of Shemaiah, who was the son of Matthiah, who was the son of Micaiah, who was the son of Zakur, who was the son of Asaph. There were also Asaph's brothers, who were Shemaiah, Azrael, Malal, Gilai, Ma'at, Nathaniel, Judah, and Hananiah. They had the musical instruments that David, the man of God, had made. Ezra, the teacher, led the group of people who were there to dedicate the wall. They went to the fountain gate and walked up the stairs all the way to the city of David. They were on top of the city wall. They walked over the house of David and went toward the water gate. The second group of singers started out in the other direction to the left. I followed them as they went up to the top of the wall. Half of the people also followed them. They went past the Tower of Ovens on the broad wall. Then they went over these gates, the gate of Ephraim, the Old Gate, and Fish Gate, and they went over to the Tower of Hananel and the Tower of the 100. They went as far as the Sheep Gate and stopped at the Guard Gate. Then the two singing groups went to their places in God's temple, and I stood in my place. And half of the officials stood in their places in the temple. Then these priests stood in their places: Eliakim, Messiah, Magiam, Micaiah, Ananiah, Zechariah, and Hananiah. These priests had their trumpets with them. Then these priests stood in their places in the temple. Messiah, Shemaiah, Eleazar, Uzziah, Johanan, Malchijah, Elam, and Ezer. Then 2 singing groups began singing with Jazariah leading them. So on that special day, the priests offered many sacrifices. Everyone was very happy because God had made them happy. Even the women and children were excited and happy. People from far away could hear the happy sounds coming from Jerusalem. Men were chosen to be in charge of the storerooms on that day. People brought the first part of the harvest and the tenth of their crops. So the men in charge put these things in the storerooms. The Jewish people were very happy about the priests and Levites on duty. So they brought many things to be put in the storerooms. The priests and Levites did their work for their God. They did the ceremonies that made people pure, and the singers and gatekeepers did their part. They did everything that David and Solomon had commanded. Long ago in the days of David, Asaph had been the director, and he had many songs of praise and thanks to God. So in the days of Zerubbabel and of Nehemiah, all the Israelites gave every day to support the singers and gatekeepers. The people also set aside money for the other Levites, and the Levites set aside money for the descendants of Aaron. Nehemiah chapter 13, Nehemiah's last commands. On that day, the book of Moses was read out loud so that all people could hear. They found this law written there. No Ammonite, no Moabite were permitted to join in the meetings with God. That law was written because those people didn't give the Israelites food and water, and they had paid Balaam to say a curse against the Israelites. But our God changed that curse and made it a blessing for us. So when the Israelites heard that law, they obeyed it. They separated themselves from the people who were descendants of foreigners. But before that happened, Elisha had given a room in the temple to Tobiah. Elisha was the priest in charge of the storerooms in our God's temple. He was a close friend of Tobiah. That room had been used for storing the grain offerings, incense, temple dishes, and things. They also kept a tenth of grain, new wine, oil for the Levites, singers, and gatekeepers in that room. And they also kept gifts for the priests in that room. But Elisha gave that room to Tobiah. I was not in Jerusalem while all this was happening. I'd gone back to the king of Babylon. I went back to Babylon in the 32nd year that Artaxerxes was king of Babylon. Later, I asked the king for permission to go back to Jerusalem. So I came back to Jerusalem. Then I heard about the sad thing that Elisha had done. He had given Tobiah a room in the temple of God. I was very angry about what Elisha had done. So I threw all of Tobiah's things out of the room. I gave commands for the rooms to be made pure and clean. Then I put the temple dishes and things and grain offerings and the incense back into the rooms. I also heard that the people had not given the Levites their share. So the Levites and singers had gone back to work in their own fields. So I told the officials that they were wrong. I asked them, why didn't you take care of God's temple? Then I called all the Levites together and told them to go back to their places and duties in the temple. Then everyone in Judah brought their 10th grain, new wine, and oil to the temple. These things were put in the storerooms. I put these men in charge of the storerooms, Shelemiah the priest, Zadok the teacher, and the Levite named Pedaiah. And I made Hanun, son of Zakur, son of Mathaniah, their helper. I knew I could trust these men. They were responsible for giving the supplies to their relatives. My God, please remember me for these things I've done. Don't forget I have faithfully done for the temple of my God and for its services. In those days, I saw people working on the Sabbath day. I saw people pressing grapes to make wine. I saw people bringing in grain and loading it on donkeys. I saw people carrying grapes, figs, and all kinds of things in the city. They were bringing all these things into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. So I warned them about this. I told them they must not sell food on the Sabbath day. There were some men from the city of Tyre living in Jerusalem. They were bringing fish and all kinds of things into Jerusalem and selling them on the Sabbath day, and the Jews were buying them. I told the important people of Judah that they were wrong. I said, you're doing a very bad thing. You're ruining the Sabbath day. You know that your ancestors did the same things. That is why our God brought all the troubles and disaster to us into this city. Now you people are making it so that more of these bad things will happen to Israel. They're doing this because you're breaking the Sabbath by treating it just as if it were any other day. So this is what I did. Every Friday evening just before dark, I commanded the gatekeepers to shut and lock the gates to Jerusalem. They were not to be open until the Sabbath day was over. I put some of my own men at the gates. They were commanded to make sure that no load was brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. 1 or 2 times, traders and merchants had to stay the night outside Jerusalem. But I warned them, don't stay the night in front of the wall. If you do that again, I will arrest you. So from that time on, they didn't come on the Sabbath day to sell their things. Then I commanded the Levites to make themselves pure. After they did that, they were to go and guard the gates. This was done to make sure the Sabbath day was kept a holy day. My God, please remember me for doing this. Be kind to me and show me your great love. In those days, I also noticed that some Jewish men had married women from the countries of Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab. And half of the children from those marriages didn't know how to speak the Jewish language. They spoke the language of Ashdod, Ammon, or Moab. So I told the men that they were wrong. I said bad things to them. I hit some of them. I pulled out their hair. I forced them to make a promise in God's name. I said to them, you must not marry the daughters of these foreigners. Don't let their daughters marry your sons. And don't let your daughters marry the sons of these foreigners. You know that marriages like this caused Solomon to sin. In all the many nations, there was not a king as great as Solomon. God loved him and made him king over the whole nation of Israel. But even Solomon was made to sin because of foreign women. And now we hear that you're doing this terrible sin. You're not being true to our God. You're marrying foreign women. Jehoiada was the son of Elisha, the high priest. One of Jehoiada's sons was son-in-law of Sanballat from Hormah. I forced him to leave this place. I forced him to run away. My God punished these people. They made the priesthood unclean. They treated it as if it was not important. They did not obey the agreement that you made with the priests and Levites. So I made the priests and Levites clean and pure. I took away all the foreigners and the strange things they taught. And I gave Levites and priests their own duties and responsibilities. And I made sure that people will bring gifts of wood in the first part of their harvest at the right times. My God, remember me for doing these good things. This is the word of the Lord. In the end of the book of Nehemiah, put those words in the comment section. This is the word of the Lord. Follow, like, share, and subscribe, and encourage others to join in with us as we read through the Bible.